Well, welcome to today's class demo. Today we shall see about the practical classes, some of the practical classes just I'm going to explain. So under this, first one is in first experiment we are going to see that winking of eye, knee jerk and spider web. These are the three experiments just we see in experiment number 1. So in order to explain the innate and learned behavior, before going to innate and learned behavior, let us see that what is actually behavior. So it is termed as ethology, and it is also the science, and the objective of this study of animal behavior under natural condition is very important aspect under this. So animal behavior is said to be the concept broadly considered and referring to every animal do, including the movement and their activity, usually referring to the measure of a response to any kind of stimuli which is happening outside or inside the body. That is what the extrinsic and intrinsic factors influencing on the animal thing actually. Konrad Lorenz was an Australian zoologist, has been called as the father of ethology. And to analyze the behavior in animals, he studied the instinctive behavior in animals like grey-lag geese actually. Further, he worked on the imprinting principle, otherwise it is generally known as the principle of imprinting, where the birds bond instinctively with the first moving object that they see within 1 hour of their hatching actually. So the ethology, otherwise the animal behavior, it is deals with two important types actually. Types of causal explanation can be given for animal behavior. One is deal with motivational mechanism. So whatever it motivates for animals to do certain things, so that can be called as proximate explanation. And the second one that we can say is selection pressure and the phylogenetic factor influencing on animal behavior, so that can be called as ultimate explanation, we can call it as. Further, the ethology or animal behavior is can be studied as an exceptional, a broad subject, and it includes the study of how the animal communicate with each other, animal compete and cooperate with the feeding mechanism and mating mechanism, animal forage or feeding mechanism and defend themselves from the attack, animals migrate and live in different environments by adjusting themselves with whatever the facilities available. The brain anatomy affects the animal behavior. So the animal's brain is the main responsible for behaving the animal, that particular animal. Animals learn and remember all the time. Whatever they learn, they remember quite a long time. And of course, we know that genetic factors affecting on the behavior, and we are going to see how these things are affecting the behavior. Animals differ in their personality and social structure. Every time, every individual, they are different in the society by structurally and personally. And finally, animal pair and reproduce. This is also pairing of animals and as well as reproducing the young one is also another interesting topic that we are going to think here. Friends, animal behavior is what animals do or avoid doing actually. So whatever they do, that comes with the behavior aspects. If they are not doing anything, that is also comes under the same aspect here. The difference between an innate behavior and learned behavior, one is that the innate behavior are those an animal will engage in from birth without any intervention. So we have to see that innate behavior and learned behavior. And innate behavior is always coming from by birth only, by genetic factors or intrinsic factors during the birth. And the learned behavior is something that the animal discovered throughout the life actually by trial and error method or by observational method. Most learned behavior comes from the teaching of the animal's parents or through experimentation with its environment. Dear friends, just I have explained in the theory even too how this learned behavior and innate behavior works in the animals actually. Let us see innate behavior. These behaviors are programmed inside or into an animal at a genetic level. So the genes are responsible for what is that the characters that they are showing or the behavior that they are showing out. The innate behavior is inheritable, passing from generation to generation through genes actually. Like how the characters change from generation, transfer from generation to generation. So the behavior also a character which pass from generation to generation actually. It is also intrinsic meaning that even an animal raised in isolation will perform the behavior. Even if you keep the animal in one place without mingling or without joining any other family members or individuals, they perform certain behaviors which is said to be what we call it as innate behavior. Whereas in the learning or learned behavior generally, it is not inheritable, it cannot be transferred. And they are extrinsic behaviors, that's what we call extrinsic meanings. They don't occur in animal kept isolated from others. If they don't learn from the outside, or if you isolate them in one place, they cannot show this character. Okay? They are permutable, meaning that they can change over time. Whatever they learn, the characters they learn, so they may change any time in the course of life actually. So here, the best example for what you call it as the innate behavior is winking of eye actually. So it is sometimes just we call it as a blinking actually, and this blinking is an omnipresent involuntary process which human carry out 15 to 70 times per minute on average. It primarily serves as a physiological purpose of cleaning and cleaning the surface of the eye. When you see that blinking, both eyes, just it is cleaning the eyeball or the eye surface. A wink is a facial expression made by briefly closing one eye. So this is what the difference between the blinking and the wink actually. So winking maybe it is the purpose which is serving, that is a physiological purpose which is serving for surface cleaning of eye, whereas the wink is expression made by briefing very close to one actually. Wink is an informal mode of non-verbal communication. Some ethologists say that it is something like non-verbal communication. Subtle gesture, it is giving the gesture, usually involved in eye contact between the those who involved in between actually. A friendly gesture implying a degree of solidarity and intimacy. These are also the factors for winking of eye. Habit of winking involuntarily under stress, often without their own knowledge. Sometimes it happens in human being without, under stress, the wink may occur, or winking, things can be seen in this thing. And the scientific reason behind it is that the left winking resulted in activation of the left frontal lobes of brain, while the right winking resulted in the activation of bilateral frontal lobes with a predominance on the right side actually. So this is the reason behind it actually. So it's a right, left, activation of the frontal lobes. The second one that you see is the knee jerk actually. And the knee jerk is, otherwise we call it as patellar reflex, we call it as, is a simple innate behavior actually. So in this reflex, patellar reflex, a sharp tap on the tendons which are present near the knee, tendons which are present in the knee, we call it as quadriceps femoris muscle exterior, which is connected to the tendons, we call it as patellar tendons. A sharp tap like this, the picture which I have shown above, a sharp tap on the tendon slightly stretch the quadriceps muscles, a complex muscle that is in front of the upper leg. So the complex muscle, this one, which in reaction, this muscle contracts actually. This muscle contracts, and the contraction tends to straighten the leg in a kicking motion. So in this area, the muscle, we call it as quadriceps muscle, which is connected to the tendons. If you slightly hit the tendons here, the action is that the pulling of quadriceps occur. It looks almost like a kicking of someone or kicking anything like that. So that means it is a straightening of the leg actually. So exaggeration or absence of the reaction, if anything that you are making, or a slight tapping causes exaggeration or absence, a reaction, nothing is going to happen if you hit over there. So that might be clearly indicates there is something like a damage in the central nervous system. That is why when we go to the doctor related to some of the nerve disorders or nerve problems, the doctor tap with a small hammer on this patellar region to say whether the nerve system, the central nervous system especially, is functioning well or not. So the knee jerk can be also helpful for recognizing the thyroid diseases also. Sometimes the doctor does this kind of experiments with the patients to understand how the thyroid functioning, how the thyroid disease can be recognized in the thing. So here what happened here, during the stretch, the message go with what you call it as a sensory neuron. The sensory nerve which are present in the what you call it as quadriceps femoris muscle, which take the impulses and it sent to the central nervous system, where the synaptic complex present here, and this synaptic complex sent information, a certain information along with what you call it as the motor neurons, and this motor neuron connected to what you call it as the biceps femoris muscle, and this biceps femoris muscle get the information so that the jerk happens, so that it brings the leg back to the position. So that's how the sensory and motor nerves function during the knee-jerk experiment. So coming to the next one, the spider web formation. So the web formation in spider, it is the wonderful aspect in order to get many food items. So it is a kind of innate behavior we see in the spiders, where they spend lot of time and lot of energy to build the nest for capturing of the partner and as well as prey. We know that spiders are arachnids, or otherwise we call it as arachne, having more than 46,700 species present in the world actually. They have 8 legs around the body, and the body is, instead of 3 parts, they have 2 parts actually. They use silk is highly developed among the spiders actually. So the silk which is which is secreted by the spider is mainly used for making of the spider web. You can see the picture here. So one picture which is collected from the internet shows somewhere in the Pakistan area, where you can see that the whole plant is covered with the spider web actually. The whole plant is covered with the spider web actually. Many spiders, but not all, build the webs actually. Many spiders, they build the webs, but sometimes few species, they do not build the nest actually. Other spiders use a wide variety of methods to capture the prey. They have a different mechanism of capturing the prey. So generally, the building of nest or secreting the nest is the innate behavior that we see in the spider family. Spiders have several spinnerets at the base of their abdomen. If you see the abdomen of a broad abdomen of the spider, they have several spinnerets which I have shown here. So every gland produces a thread for a special purpose. So the special purpose in the sense in order to make the nest actually. So there are 7 different known glands present in the spinneret area. So many spiders, they do not have all 7 glands. Sometimes they have 2, 3, 4 or something like that. Normally spider has 3 pairs of spinnerets in their body, but there are spiders with just 1 pair, or many as 4 pairs also can be seen in the spider. Spiders that decorate their webs with zigzag circles and other fancy shape and patterns that I have shown here. It's a beautiful construction of a net actually. Generally, silk secreted by the spider is a protein molecule, and the spider invests a lot of metabolic energy to synthesize some of the amino acids to produce the proteins actually. And many spiders that decorate their webs with a zigzag, as I said it earlier, circular zigzag or other fancy shape patterns, and these elaborate web decorations are known as what we call it as stabilimenta. So each one we call it as stabilimenta. There are some most common acceptable theories on why the spider decorate their webs can be seen here. One is stabilimentum, giving the stability for the web for long time. As I said here, it is an expensive task. Producing the protein, what we call it as a silk protein, is an expensive task, and it requires a lot of energy for spider to generate it. So in order to maintain the spider web for long time, so they make this what you call it as stabilimentum, interconnecting protein threads so that it can it can stay in the nature for a long time. Right. Visibility is very important. What is that theory? So sometimes some spiders, they show the visible web, and sometimes it is something like what we call it as it's rarely visible. So animals, they cannot recognize the webs actually. So visibility makes the animal to escape some of the what you call it as dangerous animals. For spiders, they move away because if they go into that area, they will be trapped and they will be killed actually. So this is one cause for visibility. Another one, invisibility. Sometimes some animals, they blindly they pass the area. Along with that, they will be trapped and they will be eaten. The third one, what we call it as camouflaging actually. Sometimes these webs are generally look like just a morning dew, or it's something like attractive thing which is very camouflaging with the nature. So that makes a mimicking mechanism so that the spider can get what you call it as the food items. Sometimes the food webs are made in order to get the food items to attract. So the spider web will be attracted by many number of animals so that animals can be trapped very easily. Excess of silk they secrete sometimes. So if the prey is larger in size and delicious in size, or some kind of a preferable food for the spider. So in order to avoid the prey to escape from the spider, they secrete large number of silky material, so that the silk material entangle all over the body. Later, the animal or the prey will be consumed slowly. Mate attraction is another thing. The males, when they are, males or females, when they are preparing the web actually, so they prepare in order to get the other partner actually. So by to attract the partner, they prepare very nice and a colorful web during the mating season. These are some of the pictures. Just I'm showing here how the spider initiates the web formation. So they secrete the thread in a wavy fashion during the wind current, so that might be attached to the substratum or to any twigs actually. So if they attached, so then the spider will hang at the center, and sometimes they make a Y shape, and after that they make the triangle shape. First triangle, the second triangle, third triangle, like that. So they make the consecutive triangle based upon the space which they are required, and after that they go for a circular net connections is made, and continuously they make the things in order to get what you call it as a wavy appearance or a zigzag appearance of the web actually. There are several recognized type of spider webs can be seen in the nature actually. The one is the spiral orb webs can be seen, which is associated primarily with the family Arenidae. The second one is a tangle web or the cobwebs, which is associated with the Theridiidae family. Funnel webs can be seen in many number of the families here. Tubular webs can be seen, and the sheet webs can be seen in the spiders actually. In the spiral orb webs, the orb webs consist of two kind of threads. One is what we have here is the radial thread and the spiral thread. So this is the general construction method of spider web. You can see here, one is the radial thread can be seen. So the radial thread, as I said earlier, One, they started connecting from one object to the another object, and after that, the second connection with the ground or any third object they make, and they make the interconnection. It makes almost like a triangle or any kind of shape which they want. And after that, they try to make the connection or bridging the connection from all the sides actually. And later they're going to have what you call it as the triangular connections, what we call it as the radial threads. They make radial threads. So here is the center portion where the spider generally sits there, and they connect. After connecting the radial threads with the boundaries, and later they go for what you call it as the spiral threads actually. So they connect each radial thread with the spiral thread, so that that becomes almost like a net-like or a sieve-like structure. So we have anchoring points, and in all the places where the web is attached to the substratum is said to be the anchoring threads or anchoring points. And sometimes they have auxiliary spirals also in between. The green indication that they make the auxiliary spirals. If the gap is too much, they try to build the gap here actually. So this is about the structure of the spiral orb things. Tangled web, you can see the structure. It's an irregular shape, and it is what we call it as episodically constructed material, web-like structure. So generally the spider-like Theridiidae family, so they secrete these kind of things. So most of the time each individual present in the center tubular structure. So any animal try to go inside or try to reach or try to approach nearby will be caught in this area. Funnel web. So it is a very dangerous spider present in Australia. So this spider makes the burrow, their nest in burrows or in the moist area, cool or shelter habitats, under rocks or under rotting logs, sometimes in a rough bark trees, occasionally a meter above the ground. Sometimes they are very, very dangerous too. Even they are secreting even the venomous secretion, and that will be very dangerous for organisms. So here any organisms try to approach this area will be trapped and will be killed and eaten. A tubular web, you can see the structure here. The web is constructed like this, and the spider will be present in the tubular structure, where here also generally you can see in the old abandoned houses or abandoned area. So this will be our bushy area. It is very, very common. So these webs, which are very similar to the funnel webs, run along the base of the trees or on the ground, etc. Tubular webs are used by the spider to hide until the prey triggers and a silken line radiating from it, just it will be attracted by the things. So these tube dwelling spiders mostly come from the family Segristidae, and are found around the world actually. And the next one is the sheet web, actually produced by some group of spiders here. They comprise of horizontal spun silk. So you can see that most of the time in the vegetated area or any logging area, some substratum present. So they make a sheet of structure like this. So whatever it comes near to this will be trapped here. Most sheet web weavers are from the Linyphidae family of spiders, which have the worldwide distribution. These spiders are sometimes called as money spider because they appear, and their appearance is said to bring good luck for human beings. So this is about the sheet web weavers. Dear students, please log on to this website so that you can get more information related to the spider web and web formation, etc. Thank you very much. We will see the next practical experiment.